We're going to just hop in here. So there's a couple of options when it comes to the forms in Parting Pro. So you may or may not be aware that having forms sent automatically to families after they go through the online checkout is an option. Of course, the other option is manual, when you'll just send your forms manually to every single case. And everybody always retains the manual option because there will be, families who go through the online checkout, but then they need an extra form that maybe not everybody else needs. So manual is always there. But what we're going to focus on primarily today is the different options for sending the forms automatically. So once your families go through your online checkouts, they've gone through the store, there's a couple of different options to have those forms sent. So they can be emailed directly to the family after they've made their arrangements. Or the second option is that they're just available immediately after that family goes through the checkout. So family completes that, last screen of their checkout while they're in the store. They then immediately get a next screen that says you've got some forms to fill out. So it all happens at once. And the nice thing is they still will get an email if for some reason the family goes through your store, gets to that next screen that says you've got some forms to fill out, and they close out of that browser, or they don't do it, or they walk away from their screen. About 15 minutes later, they will get an email if they haven't completed the forms so that they don't miss them. So that is the two options for emailing them or having them available after checkout. Hi, Gianne. Sorry that we were having some trouble joining, but Gianne's with us now. So some of you may already know Gianne. She was with our implementation team for quite a while and helped a lot with the build. She's now joined our client success team as one of the consultants. So we're happy to have her here as well. And we'll certainly use her knowledge for today's talk about forms too. And then the other thing with automatically sending forms is you have a couple of different options about how those forms are sent out. So the options are to have them sent by need type, by service type, or by package. And we'll kind of get into each one of these here and what that is referring to. So you can have your forms sent out by need type, meaning if we've got the 3 different need types available in your stores. So we've got the at need option, which is this first option here, if the family's choosing this. We've got the imminent option, and then we've got the pre-need option. So this selection is going to be based on what the family says when they go through that checkout. So for example, if you've got some very specific forms that you want all of your pre-need families to send or to be sent, then we can set that specific form up to be sent to all your pre-need families. So basically all your forms that you want to have sent, they don't have to go to everybody. You can kind of filter out who they're going to go to. So you could have pre-need forms go to a family, you could have certain forms go to imminent families, and you could have certain forms go to at-need families. The other option would be to send them by service type. So you can have, if you have multiple service types, if you're offering cremation with burial, these are all different options for you to send forms to. So if you wanted a certain set of forms to go to all your at-need cremations, that can happen. Same thing with your burial families. Obviously, those forms are different than your cremation forms. So we can set those specific forms up just to send to your burial families. So they only get the burial forms, and then your cremation families only get the cremation forms. And then, of course, if you've got a combination of other services, that can be done too by the service type. Andre or Gianne, did you guys have any scenarios or anything that you've seen work well for customers when they're sending either by service type or need type?
Yes, because if you want to send by service type, sometimes you can have a preset packet of forms instead of doing individual forms. So sometimes there's like a set type of cremation authorization, a set type of release form that you know always applies to a cremation versus you may not need that same type of authorization for the burial. So you could have a packet there so the family can kind of go through and complete the forms in a bundle instead of individually.
Mm,
I was
got ya.
also going to say with along with the service types, specifically for at need versus pre-need or imminent, we know that for pre-need and imminent, the family member or the price shopper will not know the time and date of death, and so making those fields customizable, required versus not required, that's really important there. So if we do think about the forms and we send like one packet of forms out to all need types, we do need to consider like those questions that are being asked and make sure that they are set as required or not.
Yeah, that's a very good point for sure. And that is, I think, one of the reasons too that people choose to why it's helpful to have them be able to be sent by certain need types because of that date of death requirement that they're not gonna know that obviously if the death hasn't occurred and it's a pre-need family. We've got some doodles on the screen. Let me see. I'm not sure if I can get rid of those. Um, um, all right, let me get back to my presentation here. I don't know, maybe Gian or Andrea, could you help me out and see if you can remove the red? If you can you guys see the red scribbles on the screen? You can, okay. Yeah, I don't know if maybe I don't know how to get rid of them right now, but we'll try and proceed here. So the other option is to send by package type. So in addition to the need type being at need, imminent, pre-need, and in addition to the different service type, meaning, you know, cremation, burial, you can have specific forms sent out by package too. So if you have a very specific package, I think this is really helpful for funeral homes that are, for example, doing aquamation. You know, those forms are going to be different. Than maybe the flame cremation forms. So if you've got a very specific package, you can have a specific set of forms for those. So an example of that would be, you know, you've got a traditional cremation that's going to include embalming. Maybe none of your other cremation packages include embalming. So you obviously need an embalming authorization sent to this family. So we can go ahead and set this up so that the embalming authorization and the cremation authorization get sent out to the family. Any questions so far about forms and the different ways that they can be sent?
Ashley, I was just going to say, I think there's a more option on the bottom of your screen. And
Uh-huh.
if you click on whiteboards, I think you'd be able to disable that,
Okay.
the red writing. But if not, I'll take a look at it later.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. There we go. Okay. All right. So let me X out of that. All right. So this just goes over that scenario kind of that I just talked about. If you needed an embalming form sent out to that one family, we can just streamline that process. So the real big like add here is that it streamlines your processes. So when the family goes through your checkout and they choose that package that's, you know, your traditional cremation package, and you automatically are going to know you're going to need those forms, having them auto sent just lets the family kind of continue with that process so that they can get those done, and it's kind of one less thing for you to do. So that's the real big add here. And then we'll go over some just forms, best practices. And then I have some things to show you on, you know, good forms maybe versus bad forms, what the forms look like for a family when you're sending a packet of forms versus when you're sending forms individually. So I'll have some examples here in a moment too. But just as for form best practices, it's always best to use a readable font. Sometimes when you go from making in-person arrangements to making digital arrangements, your forms need to be adjusted just a bit. And we mostly see that in the spacing of forms because the digital signatures need a little bit more space. And then some selections that you would make, with a checkbox on a paper form, we need a little bit more space to make that a digital form. So sometimes they do require a little bit more room. And then, of course, because the family is doing this without sitting down with you, keeping the forms very easy to understand is really important. So I always suggest having somebody that look at your forms to make sure that they can go through them without needing to ask you what things mean. And if they're needing to stop and ask questions, that's a good indicator that the families you're serving are going to have to do the same, and they may need to stop and give you a phone call before they can kind of proceed. So that's always good. And then also just using an original copy. Sometimes we get like scanned copies and they're kind of sideways. It's really hard for families to fill those out if it's not a really clear and good copy. So I've got one example here of what I would consider like a good form versus maybe a not so great form. This form on the left, you can see it's just got more space than the one on the right. Things when we get all these check boxes in here that are really close together, it's harder to fill out. So this one just has bigger space. Yes, it's probably going to lead to more pages for you. So this might have been a 2-page document where if we space it out and make the text a lot bigger, it might end up being a 4-page document, but it's a lot easier to go through digitally. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. And we just really, if you haven't reviewed your forms in a long time, or maybe you've been with us for a few years and we haven't reviewed your forms since you set up with us, this is something that we can do for you, and just go through your forms and make sure they're all set up correctly. See if there's any optimizations we can do for you, either on your forms itself or the process of your sending forms using that automatic form sending by package type and things like that. So let me I'm going to pause the presentation for a second, and I'm going to show you a few forms, just because I think it's a little bit easier if you can see what they're going to look like for a family. So can you guys still see my screen? It should say bad form example. Okay, I see Andrea shaking her head. Thank you. So this is what I would consider not a great form, because it looks like a copy of a copy of a copy. So you can see all this kind of dark area. While the spacing in this form is actually pretty good, but the dark areas get hard to read. So if you're a family receiving this form, it just might be harder to read than a very clear copy. Now, this appears to be an internal form that the funeral home uses, so they may not mind having it this way because they are used to this form and they use it internally. So this is how this funeral home would order their death certificate. So that is another option that I forgot to mention earlier, is that you really can have internal forms here that can't be used for you, because all of this information here will be auto-filled with what we can from the case details information. So for example, if the family's already given you all this information through their vitals, or you filled it in your case details, the date of birth, date of death, county, all of this will be pre-filled for you. So what you need to fill in is really minimal. So you're going to have, the number of copies and things, of course, but once you fill this out as a printed form, you can just print it and send it on your way, whether you're emailing that form or whether you're printing it for your own records here. So I would definitely find original copies if you can. And then let's see. So that's the example of the bad form. And then the other option here is, I think Jan mentioned too, or Andrea mentioned, was being able to send multiple forms at once. So you can send all your forms individually, but we can also combine multiple forms into a packet so that they can be sent at the same time to a family. So this is going to minimize kind of the back and forth of sending forms and the amount of notifications that the family is going to get and the amount of notifications that you are going to get. So what this would look like if you were going to send them to a family in a packet. So I've got one called just general cremation packet here. First page is a disclosure of pre-need. So they need this form filled out. Then they've got the authorization to accept or decline embalming. Then they've got the order to cremate. So we've really got 3 separate forms here that we've combined into a packet. So the family gets all of those forms at one time and they can complete the signatures all at one time. So this works well when you don't have any forms that you need before others, meaning if you've got a authorization to release form. So maybe you need to have a form sent before you can actually go do the removal. That one should probably be sent separately because you need that in order to do your removal. But all the other forms, if they're going to be the same for maybe all your cremation families or all your burial families, we could create a cremation and burial packet for you, and then the family gets those all at once. Of these forms, and then once they sign them all, they click finish, they're kind of done with signing, and then you get one alert that the family has signed forms. Family gets an alert that their forms are complete and they can go ahead and download them too.
Ashley, can you talk about the benefits of still keeping the vitals separate from that packet so that
Yeah,
the
for sure.
family can complete that and get some carryover?
Sure. Do you want to do that, or did you want me to?
I can.
Yeah.
So if you are going to do a packet, we do recommend that you not include your vitals in the packet. The reason being is one of the benefits of the system is that it is going to try to cut down on double entry for yourself as staff, and then also cut down on double entry for your families. So if you send your family a vitals form first and they complete that form, the system will take that information from the vitals. And if you have a packet that's asking for that same information, it'll send that information over to the pending packet. So then when you follow up with your packet, they're only completing the information that you don't have. If you were to create a packet and actually include your vitals in your packet, every form that they're completing, they're going to keep on putting in their name. They're going to keep on putting in their last name. They may have to keep on putting in the date of death because the system doesn't have that download of information from the vitals separately because it was combined. So the packet may be easier for you as staff, but for your families, it can be kind of redundant. And I do notice that customers of ours who do include their vitals in their packet, it seems to be quite a bit of a delay in when they're getting their forms back from their families. Whereas the ones that they send the vitals first separately, then follow up with the packet, they seem to get a much faster response on the forms. And it looks like we have a question. Jeanne saying, can we show everyone our vitals web form?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me do that really quick. So I'm just signed into a dashboard here. I'm on my forms tab, and what I'll do is just do this as if I was going to send it to a family, but that will allow us to see it as well. So I'm just going to go through the steps of choosing a recipient. Move my controls here. And then I've got a vitals web form here. So I'll go ahead and send that out. And then what it looks like for the family, I'm going to click around here to the email and just open it up as if I was a family here. So they get the email that says there's some action required. They should go ahead and review and sign their documents. When they open this up, this will be the vitals web form. We click start now. And then this is what we call the vitals web form. So the family can go ahead and start filling this out by just clicking on any of the sections here. And then they'll see things in red are required. The address bars kind of work as search bars so that they can just start typing in information there, and those will autofill. And then it's broken down in sections so that the family can kind of move through here from informant, identity information, residence, veteran status. And this can be customized as far as the order goes. This can be customized as far as the questions that are asked in the order that they're in here. So this is the best way, easiest way, most efficient way to collect your vital statistics for your families, because what goes in here is automatically going to go into the case details for your case. And then if this information is required on your forms, this will also be what goes through to your forms. So we do recommend having the vital statistic web form filled out first, that's a setting we can do for you to make families kind of open that one up first, or that one will open up first rather. That way the information that's collected in here will, like Andrea was saying, flow over into your forms. So when they're on a form like this and they've already filled out your vitals web form, most of this information should be filled out. So we're reducing any repetitiveness for both you and the family, so that you're not filling in things when you're needing to send the forms. That's all coming from the vitals web form here. Jan, Andrea, anything to add to that?
I was actually just going to say, when thinking about the questions that are asked on, like such as the cremation authorization form or embalming authorization form, you do want to make sure the question type is the same so that the answer will translate over. So for example, if the question is asked and it's asking the recipient or the family member to type it in as a text version, make sure that the cremation authorization form is also asking that question to answer it in a text type version. So if it's like a drop down menu, then we want to make sure it's set up as a drop down menu on the other forms as well. That's how the information will translate over, because if it's two different question types, then it won't translate over.
Got ya. Perfect. Okay. So for example, this, because the gender is a checkbox, it would need to be a checkbox here too, is what you're saying? Okay, got it. So it would be like this, the like kind of radio buttons or checkboxes. Got it. Okay, great. And then let me go ahead. I see, Amanda, I see your question. So let me go ahead and show you how to send this again here. So I'm just going to go, let me go back to my cases page, and I'll just kind of go from the very first page of the dashboard. So to send your vitals web form, you're going to click on your case. And then you're going to click on your forms tab. So this is also the same way you would send forms. And you can click send or print. And this is where you can either send them or print them. If you wanted to use them for in-person forms, you would want to print. But sending them, you're just going to select your primary recipient here. Once you hit the next button, up to 3 vitals web forms because they're going to be different. You could have vitals web forms that are different based on the those need types, like we were saying earlier, for the date of death, and for the families aren't going to have a date of death for a pre-need. They're not going to have a date of death for an imminent. And you might have different questions on your pre-need vitals than your at-need vitals. So you might have a vitals that says at-need, you might have a vitals that says imminent, and you might have a vitals that says pre-need. So you could have up to 3. You'll just select whichever one you want to send. This also works just like our forms do. So if you, as the funeral director or the admin, wanted to come in here and actually fill out some information before you send this to the family, you can actually do that right here. So if you, wanted to fill in the relationship, you could go ahead and do that for the family. You can move through any categories that you want to. You can, once you close this, this is when you'll actually send the form. So once I've selected my form, if I have any other forms to send at the same time, I can check those as well. And then when I hit next, it's going to show me the email that the family sees. And then you can go ahead and hit the send button, and then that form is going to be sent off to the family. And then you'll also see the forms history always on this page. So I've sent quite a few forms this morning. So I can see which ones are in progress, which ones have been sent. So in progress means the family's looked at it. Sent means it's been sent, family hasn't looked at it yet. Ready for director, which means it's ready for the funeral director's signature, which we'll get into in just a minute as well. And then we've got another question here. So what might be some reasons you would choose to send the forms manually over automatically send? Would getting the vitals form before others might be a reason? So great question. I would say that this is kind of my recommended way, is that you would probably have your vitals always auto send, and we have the ability to have the family like make them open that one first, if that makes sense. So we can have the settings so that they always get their vitals first. So for cremations, I would generally recommend that you have your vitals sent, your cremation authorization sent, and any other form that you know you're going to need automatically. And then I would also, the other thing that I would recommend, and let me go back to the email box here for a minute. So when you send your email out to the family, the proposal email, we'd also recommend customizing the email that you send out. And this can be done on a template within your settings that you guys control. We're also happy to help with this. But I would explain things a little bit to the family about what they are going to expect as far as the forms go. So this is kind of basic. Thank you for considering our funeral home. We're here to guide you through the process. You can view our packages, but then we're doing a little bit more explanation than just the basics. So once you've completed the online checkout process, you'll receive a few important forms, your vital statistics forms. This also just gives them that explanation of what that's for. We all know what the vitals is for, and we talk about it every day. So it's kind of like second nature to us, but I'm sure you've all been asked for the family, like, why do you need this information? This just gives them that little example. So they're going to get the vital statistics form to collect the information required to file a death certificate, and then some authorization forms. And this is generic, just saying, depending on the services you choose, there may be additional forms. Now, if at your funeral home, you absolutely know maybe you're only doing direct cremations and you have these 3 forms every single time, you could say, cremation authorization is authorizing the cremation. The removal form, you can go into a little bit more detail if you want. But I do feel like giving a little explanation up front here is kind of letting them know, okay, I'm going to go through the checkout process. Once I've done that, I can expect to have some forms. So then they go to your store by choosing, choose services button here. They're going to go to your store. They go through your whole process. And once they get to that complete page and hit submit, having the forms just be available automatically where it says you've got some forms to fill out, that's probably the recommended way to do it. And like I said, we can set it so your vitals comes first. They fill out all the vitals. They then open your cremation authorization. All that information that they just filled out into the vitals then gets pushed over into that cremation authorization. And they can kind of very quickly and simply fill out your forms that way. So that's kind of the recommended way. And then the forms that you would likely, just keep to send manually as needed are those kind of forms that maybe aren't for every single family, like your embalming authorization. Maybe not every family is going to need that. Maybe you've got a release for a certain medical examiner in your area that the family needs to sign. That one's going to be sent manually because we can't send by geographic locations at this point. So I would send your general forms, like that cremation authorization, to be auto sent, and then the other ones. Now the one, I guess, like other thing is these are going to be sent to the person who makes these online arrangements. We do have the ability in the checkout, and I'll just click through here while I'm talking so I can show you that last screen. But once that family gets to that checkout, they will have the ability to say if they are the authorizing agent or not. So you will have the alert that maybe the person who went through the store is not the authorizing agent. If you have your form sent to auto send, that person is still going to receive the forms. However, that even if they receive them, even if they sign them, that doesn't mean you have to use them. So just kind of keep that in mind, that if they are not the authorizing agent, you are going to get that alert in your dashboard, which I'm going to show you in just a moment. And so we do have some funeral homes that decide not to auto send forms because they really want to make sure that that person that received these forms is the authorizing agent. And then we have others who just want them auto sent for the ease of it. So they want everything auto sent. And then if by chance the person selected, no, I'm not the authorizing agent, they have that discussion with the family, get the correct authorizing agent, and then just manually send the forms to that person, since that's probably a less number of families than or it's fewer than more. So in the authorizing agent section, this is what I was trying to show you here. So on the very last page of the checkout screen, we can enable a question that says, are you the authorizing agent? And they can say yes or no. They also have a how do I know section, which this can be customized to your own state, your own funeral home, whatever you want families to know about who's the authorizing agent can be put here. And then if they say no, we ask them to provide the name of the person that is the authorizing agent so that we can collect that information. If they say yes, then they just submit the information as well. So I'll put this in here just in case you guys have not seen this before, then I can show you what this would look like when a family does make the arrangements. So the name and first name and last name are required. If they've got a phone number and email address, they can go ahead and give that to you, as well as a relationship. And then once they hit submit information, oops, let me put some of this in. I'll show you what this looks like in the dashboard so that you can see the little alert here. Did I forget something? Oh, it thinks my phone number's not real. Oh, that's funny. Okay. So this is the screen that a family gets after the checkout if we've got your forms available for them, and they can just say start now. So they would go ahead and move on to do your forms, which I think is the most seamless way to do it. Let me go back to that arrangement now that so I can show you the authorizing agent piece of that. Okay. So this is the same case that I just did. We'll pretend family went through the checkout. When they say no, I am not the authorizing agent, this is what that looks like for you. So you have this alert in here that says authorizing agent is different from informant, which is your alert to, okay, we need to obviously find out who the authorizing agent is so that they can get the correct forms and authorize this disposition. Let's see, any other questions so far?
Just a comment. Steve, you had asked for insight on, again, why you would send a form manually versus automatically. Sometimes I think about if you as a staff person want to add information yourself before sending it to the family. So for example, a lot of people will have their pre-need forms sent manually because after they spoke to the family, they might know that the family wants to add a little allowance for some flowers or different things along those lines. And so then they'll go back and they'll edit the form themselves before sending it to the family for signature. So that's another reason why you may want to do a manual send, is because you as a staff person have some information that you want to edit on the form before sending to the families.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. That's a good point. Okay. So we've gone over packets. Now we're going to kind of get into the signature options. So we can set up forms to be single signature, meaning they're going to be sent to one family member and one person's going to sign them. They can be set up to go to multiple people, meaning that the form is going to need several people's signature, and that's going to all happen on one document. And then the other option is that they can collect funeral director signatures too. So your team can sign as electronically, just like your families are. So we can go over those different options as well. So the single signature is what I just showed. The same way you would send your vitals out to one person, that's the same exact way you're going to send a form out to one person. So let me go ahead and show you how you would send out to multiple people. And before I actually show you how to send the form, I'm going to just go over some best practices for the case information. So over here in my case, you can see that I've got my decedent and I have multiple next of kin already listed as well as an informant. So best practice before you're going to send forms out to multiple people is to actually add those family members into your case details. So let me just quickly show you how to do that in case you're unfamiliar. Within your case details section, you've got this next of kin section down at the bottom where you can add additional people. So this is helpful for those states that require majority signatures. There's 4 children and you need all 4 children to sign that cremation authorization. You can just come in here and add next of kin, and this will allow you to add as many people as needed here. And then you'd add in their email address. Oops. So we've got that done. So I've got 3 people. You can kind of see I've got Susan, I've got Brad. I can go back to any of them needed here and do further edits if needed. Now that I've got the people that I need to send this form to, I'm going to proceed to show you how to send the form. So I'm going to click over on my Forms tab. Again, I'm going to go Send or Print. And then if I've got a form that I need to send to multiple people, my primary recipient is the person that's going to fill out the majority of the forms, meaning all the questions. And then the others are just going to sign it. So you want your primary recipient to be the person who's who's the responsible person, meaning the informant, maybe who's giving you all the vitals, that one family member who's kind of your main point of contact. This person can answer those questions in the form, like I said. So that's going to be your primary recipient. And then to add additional recipients, you can click on Add Recipient. And now I have that same drop down where I can choose my other people. So if I need to send this to 3 people, for example, I'm just going to click my recipient button again. And then I'm going to select my other recipient here. So now I've got 3 recipients. You can also delete recipients if you selected the wrong person. You can just do a quick delete there. And you can continue adding people here. The number of people you add just depends on your form and how many people can sign your form. And then I'm going to hit next. And then what happens when you're sending a form out to multiple people is you've got this extra line of text under your form. I know it's small, but this one says maximum of 3 recipients. So this tells me that this form can hold up to 3 signatures. And again, this is really just dependent on your form. So if you have a form that holds 6 signatures, we can do that too. But this is going to be how you select who you're sending that form to. So I have this form that I can select all the people on. So in this one, I need all 3 of these people to sign it. So I'm going to select them all. And then this one holds a funeral director signature too, so I can show you that at the same time. So if you've got a funeral director that needs to sign this too, you can select them as well from the list, and then they will receive that. When you hit edit on a form that has multiple signatures on, it will actually show you who's going to fill out what. And so this is where you can see what that primary recipient is going to be filling out versus what the secondary signers will be filling out. So we'll give this a second here to load.
Ashley, and real quick, Steve asked a question. He was under the impression that he could have the form signed by third parties, like someone at the health department or the medical examiner's office. I responded that the forms are designed to be signed by an informant slash next of kin. Is that correct?
I'm trying to think if there is I think that,
I I believe we have one customer that sends it to not the recipient or the family member. They use third-party vendors as well. So the workaround solution would just be to make sure the recipient is different. And for those forms, we could still set it up on the back end. Steve, we would just need to make sure that they are not being sent out automatically after checkout. And so you would still go through the same scenario if you were to
um,
manually send out
hey,
these forms and the
Gian, why don't we do this real quick? Why don't we finish this scenario as to not confuse things? And then as soon as we finish sending the multiple signatures, I'll actually show that. Is that okay? Or we can finish talking about it just so
yeah,
we don't get confused here with the sending.
sounds good.
Thank you. So for the multiples, what you'll see, what I'm looking at right now is the primary recipient. So we've got the required fields here. And this is showing you again what that primary recipient's going to be. When you hover over this field, it's grayed out. This is just letting you know your primary person can't fill that out, but it's giving you the name of the person who can. So then you can see all the different signature fields. This is where Susan's going to sign. This is where Brad's going to sign. And then hitting next recipient will just show you what your next recipient's going to fill out. So you can be confident that everybody's filling out the right fields. So again, I'm looking at the next person. They can't fill any of this out. The only thing that they can fill out is this section here. So you can edit as needed. And then just simply hitting the next button will allow you to follow through with sending that form. And then once you do that, what happens is every person that you've sent that form to gets an email alerting them that they've got a form ready to sign. And then each person can sign that form when they're ready. So even though like Brad was like my third signer, he can sign that form first on his designated field. So it's not stopping progress along the way. And then once every member of the family has signed, if there's a funeral director signature, there'll be an email that goes out to the funeral director letting them know that that form is ready to sign. And that was just next on our list. So I'm going to quickly show you that really quick. So if you've got funeral directors that are signing electronically, what happens is that funeral director gets an email saying the following forms have been completed by the family and are awaiting your signature. Then they can click review and sign, and they're simply going to sign just like the family did. And I've got, I think, an example pulled up here. Get lost in my tabs though. Let's see this one. Sorry. Okay, I think it's this one. So I signed out again, but basically the funeral director's signature is going to be available for that funeral director sign after the family signed. So some funeral homes like that too, to just have everything electronically done. Okay, and then let me go back to the other scenario that was just brought up really quick. So for Steve, if you want to send a form to somebody who's not the next of kin, let's say you have a medical examiner or something you want to send this to. I think, Jan, correct me if you're wrong, but I think what you're doing is we would put in the name and email here of the person that you're going to send the form to, right? Okay. So we'll just say medical examiner, and then this is going to be the medical examiner's email. I'm just going to use my kind of test email. So you would put in that medical examiner's email here. And then when you go to next, you'll select that form. So if it is just an internal form, you've got an ME form, or it's a death certificate order form, or whatever it is, you can go ahead and do that and select your form and then send it out. So I think the biggest thing is like, it's not gonna, the person that you're wanting to send to is not going to be in this drop down menu because they are not an informant. They are not an next of kin. They are not associated with the case. But you can manually type in a first name and last name and manually type in an address and send a form to anybody that you want to. Is that right? Jan, were you going to add anything else? I know I kind of interrupted you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. And then you also want to make sure that that check mark for the primary recipient is, yeah, checked off.
Okay. Because we just want their signatures. We don't want them answering the other questions on the form.
Yeah, and if it's a scenario where you just need the forms for the third party, the system doesn't have that capability of storing that anywhere. So my best case scenario would just be, just create a case for that specific vendor and then add them as that informant so that they could go through the forms themselves.
Got ya.
Okay,
Now, this is that the
Ashley
situation when you're sending, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. This is Steve. Thank you for addressing my question. And I just thought it was so cool that not only the documents that you sent to the families, but you could create and send forms to, to order death certificates through your vitals office,
Mhm.
or ME for release.
Mhm.
That type of thing, and keep all the relevant documents associated under one case file, so to speak, so that you can later on go back and see, oh, I did order death certificates for this family. I have a record of all the documents and so on. So these forms may not necessarily require the receiving party to sign and,
Mhm.
return, but just as a kind of trace or record
Yeah.
for you to know that they've been sent. And where would you find that? I guess, is there a place where it's stored, or
So
if
all
you
of
order
them
death
will
certificates?
be, any forms that you send ever, are going to be on this page here under forms. Now, if you've got a form that's like a record of death form, and you know that that's an internal form, then like when it says record of death here, you're going to have that progress. So depending on your form title, you might be able to know just by the title of the form what it is. Um, so if it's sending to multiple people, you still might need to check to see if everybody signed it. But that's where you would see everything. So right here is your overview. And then, excuse me, down below is your history. So if you open this up, this is where you're also going to see when things were sent. And this is helpful to know when reminders were sent out for certain family members. You can see all of that information here. So it should all be on this history page, which is your forms tab here. Did that answer your question, Steve?
I think so. Well,
Okay.
just to confirm, if I thought I saw your example of a death certificate order form.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be the
So
same?
I have that. So that's why I meant the title. So I have that in here as my bad form example. But if this said death certificate order form, then I would immediately know by looking at this that it was in progress, but not quite finished. But once it says completed, then I know that form has been completed. So it's really going off of your title. I just used that as an example form. So that's why it's titled that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay, perfect. And then I know we've got a couple other comments. So Sue had asked about what about having a durable power of attorney added to, are you the authorizing agent? Sometimes other family members, and we need that paperwork. Can they be downloaded and sent to you in Porting Pro? So I think, Sue, what you're asking is, so the family gets through the store, they get to that checkout screen where it says, are you the authorizing agent? They can see, maybe that durable power of attorney isn't needed. They can't submit the forms right there and like upload them into Porting Pro right there. But that would need to take place via an email so that they would need to email those forms to you. However, once you have them, what I would do with those is I would come down into your case files here in Porting Pro and upload them here so that you've got them within the case file. They just can't upload them automatically into Porting Pro right now. And then the next question here is, what if one person, so this is regarding the multiple signatures, what if one person never signs or comes in person to sign? So this would be the scenario where I just sent that form to 3 people. So the question is, what if 2 sign and the third one just is non-responsive and never signs? What are we going to do then? So you do have to, in that case, you can't complete the form without all the signatures that were requested. So if that's the case and that person is just MIA and never comes forward, you do unfortunately have to resend the forms at this time. So then the 2 family members who had signed originally would sign again, and then whatever you're doing on your end for, noting that that family member wouldn't follow through. So yes, that is the case at this moment. These are really great questions, you guys.
Sorry, actually, to go back to Sue's question, Sue,
Yeah.
you asked about the form. Is that form accessible for anyone, or is this form going to be provided by the funeral home? So can they access it online anywhere and then give that to you, or is this something that needs to be filled out when they state that they are the durable power of attorney?
So I think it's a form that the family would have in their possession stating that they are the durable power of attorney. So it's going to be legal paperwork that the family is
Okay.
holding, like they are a guardian or a durable power of attorney for the family. So it's actually something that they need to give a copy of to the funeral home so that the
So
funeral home knows that they're the durable power of attorney.
So in the Web Vital form, for example, there's that question where it asks if the person that had passed was a veteran, and then it asks for like
Oh,
them to
yeah.
upload the DD 214 document. So that could be a workaround. So you could ask that question in your Web Vital form where it asks the recipient, "Are you the durable power of attorney?" And if they select yes, then you could add the field where it asks them to upload that document. That's why I had asked.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's how you can actually collect that document from the family member.
Thank you, Jan. I
Ashley's going to show you.
totally like skipped my mind on that one. But yes, that is absolutely a way you could do it. So I'm just going into the vitals really quick. So we would have the option in a form like this that says, for example, like Jan was saying, we ask if they're a veteran. If they say yes, and they say, yes, they do have discharge paperwork. This is an example of how somebody can upload a document. So they can click on here and upload it. So we could add a very similar question to this that says, are you if you're power of attorney, do you have your documents? And they could say yes. And then they would have the option to go ahead and upload them here within the vitals. Yes. Great call, Gian. Thank you. um, Let's see. And so yeah, Sue, if that's something you want us to do, let us know. We can follow up with you as well. If that's an option that seems like it may work for you. And we can help you kind of with placement, probably under the relationship here for the next of kin. Perfect. Any other questions? Let me see if I had anything else. I think we might have gotten through everything here. Yeah, the last thing here was general Q&A, which we're kind of at here. So we do have a couple more minutes. So if anybody has any other questions, we'd be happy to continue answering here. Like I said earlier, a lot of funeral homes, if you've been with us for a while, it's probably been a little bit since you've kind of reviewed forms, or some of these changes of being able to send the forms by need type or by service type or by package type. These are kind of new within the last year or so. So if these options also are something that you'd like to update, our support team can help make adjustments. If you already know what the adjustments are, you can just let our team know by using the chat function in the dashboards here. And reaching out to the team. If you need some help making some decisions on the forms or some more specific questions about how to do things, we on the client success team are happy to meet with you. We'll send a link out in our meeting follow-up. So you've got a link to schedule a call or just give us a call as well. So we're always here to kind of help through these questions as well. Let's see. Gianna or Andrea, did you guys have anything else to add?
Feel free if you guys want to schedule a one-on-one consultation with any of us to go over your forms and your form needs specifically. As you can tell, Jean's probably the best person to try to schedule that with. But she and I are more than willing to go through. And if we don't know an answer, we'll definitely consult with our team. As you can see, we like to brainstorm behind the scenes a lot to answer your questions, but we'll definitely come up with a solution that'll get you the best flow for your forms for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can reach out to customer support about scheduling with
Mhm,
any of us.
Yeah,
for sure.
please utilize that chat icon in your dashboard. The support team is truly tremendous. They're kind of like our right-hand man. So yeah, utilize them to the best of your ability.
Yeah, for sure. And we're also love your feedback. So if this is helpful, we'd love to know that too. If there's something else that would be helpful or another topic you'd love to cover, we're also open to that. So our email will be in the email follow-up that we send out as well. So yeah, please give us your feedback. Anything that we can do to help y'all, we're very open to. So this has been a great hour, lots of great questions. And we've got one more coming in here. So our family is able to go in and add the durable power of attorney or DD 214 at a later time. So I believe that is going to be done through a form or through the vitals only. So you can send them. Now, the other thing that I just realized is we do have some people who have a form. So if this was something, Sue, that you felt you might need at some point, we can create a form for you that is just a collection form for durable power of attorney that would be able to have that same upload feature. So that's how you could request the forms from the family. They can upload them. They'd be attached to that document, and then you'd have them in the system. So if it doesn't come up on the vitals or they don't have it on the vitals, the other way around it would be to create a form that's just sent to them where they can upload the documents. So yeah, it does need to be something that's initiated by you. It's not just available to the families, but once you initiate it, they can go ahead and upload those things. Perfect. Okay, well, we are at time, so I want to respect everybody's hour. We really thank you for joining us. This has been great, and we hope to see you on our next call next month. Bye, everybody.